Okay, so I'm still in the same program from the last video, and we have the two functions, my two homemade functions here, the get picture function and then the pull lever function to mimic the slot machine. And when I hit the run button, where does this program start running? It starts running here in the for loop that I've coded. So this is like what we would call the main function. And we've never had to think about this in our previous programs because we didn't really have homemade functions like we have now in this program. But the code, if you don't specify otherwise, then the program, the code file itself is just kind of like the main function, and it starts running wherever the code starts. Now in this case, the program starts running here, the main function. User-defined functions or programmer-defined functions have got to be explicitly called. And we call them by saying, hey, you, run your code. Here's what you need by way of arguments, which is what I'm doing here. I'm calling the pull lever function from this loop. And the pull lever function in turn calls the get picture function. So these functions are being called, okay, but they're being called from here. This is where the program starts then with this for loop. So it's advisable once you start, now we've never had to think about this in the past, but now that we're using functions, now that we're making our programs more modular, the recommendation is once you start adding your own functions and breaking things up like we're doing here, then you should define the main function, okay? As opposed to just leaving this code loose by itself in the file, we're going to explicitly define the main function. And it's easy. All you have to do is add a def once again. Okay. And then let me do my spacing here. Okay, so this is my main function. And yeah, now let me run it. Nothing. What's going on? Where are my slot machine pictures? Well, here's the thing. Once you have a programmer-defined function, I said this sentence already a few minutes ago, once you have a programmer-defined function, you have to explicitly call that. It doesn't run by itself. It doesn't run automatically. So once you define that main function, you can no longer just press run and expect, you know, the program to start running, which has been the case for us all semester so far. So we have to call the main function. And how do you do that? Hey, you, run your code, right? It really is that simple. So here's one way to call main. Hey, you, run your code. Okay, and then the loop runs. I get the 10 pulls of the lever. I did get one jackpot there. Okay, so that's one way to call main. It is not advisable. This is kind of a simple way to call main, we'll say. And it's not advisable for reasons that we'll get into in later videos in the same unit. So this is coming up, maybe even next couple of videos. Here's a better way to call main, and your book talks about this too. This is the recommended way to call main. It's still hey you run your code. Ultimately, you see that's hey you run your code, but we wrap it in this if statement. If the name of this file equals main, then we're going to call main. And here's what's going on. Every code file, Python code file that you have has an internal variable. We haven't had to worry about it up until now, but it's always been there. And the name of the name of this internal variable is name, sandwiched between double underscores. Okay, that's the name of that variable. And when you don't specify otherwise, then that variable is given the name main, okay, as like this is the main file in the program. You don't have to tamper with it, all right? So if this program that we're running is the main file, then we're going to call main, All right. Now, and that's it. That's all there is to it. You really, and like if that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, just type this. Just type this. Okay. Just type it character for character. Recall this is a double underscore. So these are double underscores. But yeah, just go ahead and type that and it'll work just fine. Eventually, like in the next couple of videos, we're going to see how you can like reuse code by reusing a module. So my code file is going to become a module in another program. And so I can use the slot machine code, for example, and some other game, someone else's game, somebody else can use it or something. So the main function might not be needed if I just want to use these functions in someone else's program and they're doing something entirely different. So that's why we're asking, oh, is this the main file? If this is the main file, go ahead and execute the main function that's in this file. But if it's not, then don't execute that main function because it probably wouldn't make any sense for the other person's program. The other person's program is doing something completely different. But it might want to use the slot machine stuff that I've coded here, the pictures and the pull lever. So that's what that's about. So again, if you don't want to bother with this, just type this and you should be fine.